That one phrase that Elon had about doing a startup is like chewing glass and looking into the abyss. You feel that when there's no full-time gig, when the boats are burnt, and when you're looking straight into the startup and there is no going back. You figure things out, you get more creative.
Hey, welcome back to Founder Real Talk. I'm your host, Josh Broward. And in case you're new to this podcast, let me tell you what's going on here. A lot of times in the startup world, basically we get guys talking about how great they are and how they made their millions or bazillions of dollars and what were the secrets to their success. And if you're on the outside looking in, it can feel like all they ever did was get it right. And that is the ticket to a successful startup is getting it right all the time. And it's just not true. There's lots of getting it wrong, lots of struggle forward. And that's why we do this podcast. So everybody can hear from each other what the real life journey is like being a founder. So today we have Jose Bulatao, who is the founder of VenueKonnex, which is an AI-powered event booking marketplace. And he is on a mission to be the first solo founder to run $1 billion company. And he's doing this in a unique way that I'm sure we'll need to hear more about, where they're deploying a part-time for equity model. He calls it Uber for builders. So lots of contributors get equity, but one founder. Jose, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's
Pleasure to
start
be
with
here.
Let's start with the company itself. What problem are you trying to solve?
Absolutely. So, like you're saying, VenueKonnex is an AI event venue marketplace. So think like Airbnb for events. But what you have is an AI that does most of the work for you. When a corporate event planner needs a venue for, say, 100 people in Manila or 400 people in Norfolk, they don't want to spend 3 weeks emailing venues one by one, chasing responses, and dealing with all the legwork, right? So what our platform does, it handles discovery, the outreach, the follow-ups, and negotiations. So the planner just has to make the final call, and that saves a lot of time and effort.
Okay, so basically deploying AI to do all the research and negotiation so the event planner can just make a decision.
Absolutely, because I don't know if you heard the quote from Sam Altman, and I think it might be 10 months or a year old now, where he said that you'd see the first person building a billion-dollar unicorn as a solo founder. And at first, roll back, not even that long ago, right? 10 months or 12 months. And you said, yeah, I don't know, maybe. But tell you what, when you actually start rolling up your sleeves and you start digging into the technology, seeing what the capabilities are, it moves fast. So fast forward to the discoveries with ChatGPT, then Manus, and then you start looking at stuff like OpenClaw just recently. That took the world by storm, and that made the vision and that reality so much more clear, as you're able to not hire necessarily for those roles anymore. You could build those roles from scratch. And so the biggest constraint in the past had been execution. So now what if you're building bots that can execute exactly what you want, how you want, round the clock? Yeah, so the race is on, and it's getting closer and closer.
All right. Now, tell us more about this Uber for builders model that you get.
So part-time for equity. Now, when I was looking into Y Combinator had this, they usually like not just one founder, but two founders, right? I mean, that's been their thing. They said, come in here with a good problem to solve, come in with a co-founder, somebody handles the technical side, the business side, and, that improves your odds of getting in. But here's the problem with co-founders is that whenever you have, even just with two founders, or co-founder, and it's a 50-50 split. What happens when you go 1 month, 2 months down the line, and the work is no longer 50-50? One guy's doing 80%. The other guy's doing 20%. And it shifts and it changes, and you are locked into this long-term static split that doesn't necessarily define how the workload was divvied up, right? And so to address that, I put together part-time for equity. And part-time for equity really was around, if you're familiar with safe contracts where people would invest money into a company under a safe contract with a future valuation. And when you get to, say, Series A and it values your company at a certain amount, that investment converts into an actual percentage of equity, right? And it was a way for Y Combinator people get people to invest in companies early on, friends, family, to not necessarily have to get tied up with all the legal stuff. It got them off the ground, and they were investing money for some future equity in the company. Take that same concept. Now, instead of investing money, let's say we invest time, right? Say I put the feelers out, and somebody would be their background is marketing. He goes, "Hey, I need to put together a go-to-market strategy. Anybody want to help me? No cash up front. You're investing your time that equates to a dollar figure, and that is your monetary investment in the company." And so the reason it was part-time is what you try to do is de-risk the participation. So if your say marketing guy has a full-time job, but wants to participate in side hustles, startups, or any other type of activity, and maybe they don't want to drive an Uber around in their spare time, right? What are your options? Now you put together a mechanism for a person to participate part-time in a startup with the skill sets they have. So we have marketing guys that would participate. We have sales guys that would participate. We'd have devs, they'd just call me up, say, hey, we would have some product requirement that we need to put together. And we'd go across to the team, hey guys, we need to put this together. Anybody interested? People would put their hand up, goes, yeah, I'll build that for you for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 in an equity note, right? And so that addressed a lot of things. It addressed the dynamics of the participation. It addressed the high failure rates. I don't know if you know this, but it's about 65% failure rate for co-founders working together because somebody's going to get upset. They're not going to see eye to eye. And if it's a 50-50 split, and they can't resolve it, the company suffers, goes into the ground. So it addresses the dynamics. It addresses the high failure rates of startups in the beginning. And it also gives people the ability to do in their spare time the stuff that they're good at, stuff that they're passionate about. And so it works pretty well. I mean, on paper, it works well. When you look at it, it doesn't come without its problems. There's a high turnover. People will come in, they'll work on something for a while. They go, okay, I'm good. And that's fine, right? So you'd have people come and go throughout this entire journey to help participate an hour at a time, 10 hours at a time, a week at a time, or however long. Some would leave, some would come back. And so with the ultimate goal of the company to get to Series A, to get valuation, and then at that point, everybody that participated, now you can either, first off, pop the bottles of champagne. Mm-hmm. Number two, you have the choice. You can either cash out or you can convert it into equity. Mm-hmm. And so that's the whole part-time for equity model. And I'm starting to look at a couple of different variations of it, maybe as hackathons, right? Get people involved in hackathons versus, periodic check-ins. But that is one of the hacks that I put together in order to have that vision of a OPC is the new term, one person company. Retain all the control, but still have help when you need it.
Interesting. Is this your first company using this model?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my background's, Fortune 500 tech companies. And so I understand, tech at scale, but this is my first time as a startup. And that was one of the things that I ran into early on was co-founder split. And it was messy. And so do what any good engineer does, right? Let's solve for it.
All right. Interesting. Okay. So thinking about VenueKonnex, what's a big win for you in the last year?
Within the last year, it was really the aha moment. There was an aha moment. Initially, we used to do everything manually. So we started off as a marketplace, just a standard marketplace connecting event planners to venues to service providers like catering and whatnot. And when you have a marketplace, you have zero inventory. There's nothing in there. So how do you convince people to come in and join a platform when there's no inventory? And so everything was manual. We used to pay people $5 to create listings on the platform to sort of seed it and convince people that there's something actually here. And that was very slow going. A lot of the processes were ill-defined. They were manual, took a long time, and getting people to be consistent with it was really, really hard. And this is a journey that a lot of startups within the past couple of years have gone through. So it's not a unique case where everything's being done by hand. So when you look at the progression, you start off, everything's traditional. You're doing things, by hand, manually. And then you start looking, maybe there's a better way. And so you make that progression from doing it by hand to let me find, AI native companies to help out, right? So you're hunting around for companies that are using AI to help with either outreach, with sales, with putting the listings together, whatnot. And you start going down that path. And we did that for a little bit. And what we realized was even that wasn't all that great. The control wasn't there. I don't know if you've dealt with AI native startups. It's all over the place, right? Sure, they're using the technology, but you're not using the technology. And so that next progression from doing everything manual and AI optional to AI native, you start doing things in house. You finally get fed up with it. You roll your sleeves and start using the technology in house to identify the workflows and start automating the workflows. And that, my friend, was the aha moment. Because up until then, it took us about 10 months to put together 2,000 listings on our platform, on our marketplace, by hand and with people. And the minute we built our own AI agent in-house to create the listings that people did, putting together pictures, descriptions, reviews, etc., the minute we got that automation in place, it was off to the races. It was night and day. That same 2,000 listings that took us about 10 months to do was now done in weeks. And that was the aha moment. That was the
Okay.
aha moment. And go, oh my goodness, what else can we automate? What else can we, put an AI agentic agent to do? And so that was the biggest win. When we first did that, we built our first AI agent. Then we started looking at everything else that we could build into it. Yeah.
One thing that we talk about a lot here is a definition of wisdom that we borrowed from others.
Hmm.
It's wisdom is failure redeemed. So kind of another way to say it is the most important lessons we learn the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would believe that 100% because no amount of explaining, no amount of tutorials, no amount of passed on information really clicks until you go through that pain, until you go through that suffering. Like if I roll back the time when we started, I was working a 9 to 5 when I first kicked this off in order to get my 5 to 9 off the ground. And then at 5 to 9 we were working. So basically we're working around the clock trying to get this thing out. And one piece of wisdom from Y Combinator was in order to see it, you have to work full time. You have to be committed. As a matter of fact, they wouldn't take you unless you signed off that if they chose you for their acceleration program, that they would not take you on unless you had 3 months full time to commit to them in order to improve your odds of success. And I just didn't see it. You don't see it when you're working a full-time job because you always had something to fall back on. But I'll tell you what, that one phrase that Elon had about doing a startup is like chewing glass and looking into the abyss. You feel that when there's no full-time gig, when the boats are burnt, and when you're looking straight into the startup and there is no going back. You figure things out, you get more creative because that constraint and that safety net not being there gets you to hyper focus on the really important things to get the business off the ground. So, with that wisdom, with the ones that they tell you about, You don't see it till you actually live it. And when you live it, it clicks. It makes sense. Yeah.
What's something that you learned the hard way? Something you learned through struggle or failure?
There's a whole list. How long have you got?
They're like so many things. So many.
There's a really long list. Let's see about what's a good example of things we had to learn the hard way.
Maybe just this quarter.
This quarter, I think, sales really should start. And the idea of, and this is learned the hard way. So this is one of the most basic things they'll teach you in acceleration programs is when you're building and when you're solving a problem, the first thing you need to do is talk to your first 100 customers. Get to your first 100 customers. This was learned the hard way. This was learned the hard way because every customer conversation that you have helps you iterate and improve the product to address the issues that ICP or, ideal customer profile has. What people tend to do as startup founders is they get heads down, they start building product and they start building product and they keep tweaking product and they adjust all the things that they can trying to get to perfection. And that really is the hardest way to do it. It's the wrong way to do it because what you start thinking is the problem you're trying to solve may not actually be the problem that your ideal customer profile wants solved, right? So that was an important lesson. And the minute we got out of heads down, working on stuff, and actually engaging with the venues, the event planners, talking to caterers, talking to, AVIT professional, all the real people that do the real things in the space that we're trying to do it versus guessing and building in a silo, that's when they unlock it. That's when you're able to get back to, we're building for these guys. You need that feedback loop. And without that feedback loop, your odds of success are very, very slow, or very, very low, I should say. So that was a hard lesson learned. That would be one of the most painful things I would pass on to anybody considering going into entrepreneurship is that, solve a problem, talk to the people you're solving the problem for, get to that first 100 fast.
What did that change for you and for VenueKonnex?
What did it change?
Yeah. Can you give us a real tangible, practical thing? Did it increase revenue? Did you close more sales? Did you have a better sense of what you need to do next?
Well, I mean, with tangible wise, it helped us adjust our sales approach. Where if we, for example, hi, my name is Jose. I've got a marketplace. Our company's called VenueKonnex. Would you like to join? Click. Door slammed. Door slammed, And so you keep talking to folks and you get no and no over and over again. And then one day, I think it was somebody had asked us to look into it. So one of the first requests that came onto the platform, so it was, hey, I'm doing a jiu-jitsu tournament in April. My budget is $4,000. Can you help me look into this one venue, get me a quote, and possibly find other ones, right? Get on the phone. Hey, venue XYZ, I've got a client. They got a budget of $4,000, April 4th, 200 people. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Next call. Hey, venue XYZ, April 4th, budget $4,000, this many people. Oh, would you like to come by and take a look and see our facility? And you see where I'm going with this, right? I would not have learned that people respond more when you have a tangible deal in hand versus a complete cold call from a company that doesn't do nothing or has no brand recognition because there's no trust built in, there's no reviews yet, there's none of that. So that was one of those lessons that you only learn from talking to people and getting that feedback is they're gonna slam the door in your face, hang up, pay you no attention, not get back to you unless they see value. So one of the changes that we did was we did not approach venues anymore cold. We did it on behalf of an actual request. And once you have an actual request, it goes from a cold lead to a warm lead. And that opens up the door for automation, right? It opens up the door for higher conversion rates. If that doesn't go through, if you call a person with a value proposition and the timing isn't right, either it's not in budget, the capacity isn't large enough, or they're just not available that day, you know what that does open up? Are you interested in joining our platform and getting more, leads like this? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge.
That, that's a really interesting insight. What I'm hearing you say is if you're building a two-sided marketplace, focus on the buyers and use the buyers to help you land sellers.
I think that's the lesson learned.
Yeah,
You know, I think that's the lesson. You know, if you got a two-sided marketplace, which one are you going to start with? You can start with the venues and build supply, which is traditional, right? And build inventory. But it's a harder sell,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, you're who is it? Oh, I can't remember his name. One of the OGs of the startup world. He has a blog post, do things that don't scale. And so
Yeah,
yeah,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
you're basically you're solving your seller acquisition by doing things that don't scale. We get the buyer, then okay, now we'll go get 10 sellers and
Yes.
get them on our platform through
Yes.
this one buyer.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
that's
And
pretty cool.
so as you start, you know, doing the things manually, and you have to do it manually. I think that's it might be Gary Tan that you're thinking about, or Mike Siebel from YC. Do things that don't scale initially. You don't see and you don't fully understand the problem till you do it by hand.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then once you're able to do it by hand repeatedly, then you can start introducing leverage in the form of technology, in the form of hiring, in the form of raising capital to do things that don't scale first, but you could always leverage later. And if you have something that's very inefficient up front and you scale too early, now you're inefficiently burning through technology or capital or people.
Yeah, don't scale chaos.
Don't scale chaos. Yeah, for sure.
What's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve right now?
With our event planner, so it's an agentic event planner, and the solve for it really is in the corporate world. So my background is corporate world. I spent time at Apple, Hewlett Packard, Supermicro, Adobe, and in IT, part of that is dealing with audiovisual for large scale events. Think sales kickoffs, QBRs, product launches, anything like that. It's really important. It's high stakes because you've got a lot of people on there and the technology needs to work, as well as all the logistics that go into events, right? Identifying the location, making sure it has the right gear. So I saw that from the corporate side and I saw a lot of the work that went into identifying these things. I mean, from the executive assistants to HR managers being just constantly on the phone, calling venues just to try to get a short list, and the back and forth with the emails, the texting, the negotiation, and having an RFD that you're or RFP that you're trying to get fulfilled. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And if you look on average, the time to just identify a venue and get service providers, I believe is maybe 10 days based on, I think it was a Gartner study. 10 days on average for a corporate event planner to put together the stuff that we're trying to take from 10 days to 10 minutes, you know. And so with that type of efficiency, that opens it up for everything, you know, because the drudgery of doing all the calls, doing the negotiations, getting quotes and providing it back to purchasing for approval, right? Getting it through financials. So much goes into that because they don't want just one quote, right? You know what I'm talking about. They don't want just one quote. They go, did you shop this around? And so we're really trying to do the corporate event planners a favor by giving them the ability to say, Jose, here's my RFP. Here's the venue I want to get to. See if it's in budget, see if it's available, see if it has the capacity for us. And while you're at it, can you give me some alternatives so that when I go back to the finance team, they know that I've done my due diligence?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I saw firsthand in corporate America, doing the AV and IT for it and working with them side by side. And that's really the problem that we're trying to solve.
What's the hardest part of that for you guys?
The hardest part of it right now is we're still trying to prove it, right? We're still trying to prove that it's a viable model because what we have set up right now is we're trying to build a win-win-win situation. And so the difficulty is getting the first few sales. So we've talked to a lot of, you've lived this pain, right? You see it. The first few sales are always the hardest because you think you have something and you're getting close to closing a deal and poof, it evaporates. Not once, not twice, not 50 times, not 75 times. Those, that exercise helps you identify the gaps in your solution, what the customer is wanting, and how to button it up. And so, as a two-sided marketplace, you're not just having to keep the event planners happy, but you also have to make sure that the venues are happy, or if there's catering or anything else, happy. And the way we built the model is it's a 10/90 split, right? For the event planner, they're saving a lot of time because now somebody else is doing the legwork for you that normally you'd have to hire somebody or, spend time on the phone doing yourself. For the venue side, if they don't have to pay up front, then they're not spending money on marketing, right? Not spending money on advertising. I show up with not a cold lead, but a qualified lead because I'm telling them exactly what their budget is, when they want this done, what's the capacity, here's the other details of the RFP. So a lot of that negotiation and back and forth goes away. And what the venue receives is a very, very qualified lead. And now you've got both sides. You try to do a 10/90 split on this end as a referral fee. So that's part one. And the other thing that we have issues with is leakage. Well, what's to stop them from going to each other directly, right? I have Airbnbs. We get people to call all the time and say, hey, Jose, I like your Airbnb on this platform, but can we go outside the platform and work something out? And I said, no, absolutely not, because the platform provides some insurance, this, that, and the other, and what you're going to save in a handful of money, or not a handful, but a little bit of money is going to be more pain going forward, right? So take that idea. What can we do as a platform to keep people on platform? And the idea was this: if we have a 10/90 split, I bring the qualified lead to a venue, and the venue gives me 10% of that. We go back to the planner and say, to keep you on platform and keep you happy and to go through us, we're going to take this and give you up to 10% cash back. So now, not only do they win by saving time, but if they continue to stay on platform and they book through us and we lock that in, they're getting money back. And that really is the goal because nobody's doing that. Airbnb doesn't do that. Uber's not going to do that. No one's going to be doing that. And so if I have something baked into the marketplace that takes it and elevates it from a marketplace to something that incentivizes the planners to continue using it and get cash back, I think the analogy I got was Rakuten. Rakuten, regardless of the venue, let us try to work our pricing act. Let us build our brand. Let us build that trust, and let us build that pricing. So the venue now gets a vetted lead. Planner saves time, gets a cashback rebate, and VenueKonnex monetizes a small piece in between for making the connection. So if you shoot for that win-win-win, guys, it's a good model. And maybe we just haven't talked to enough people yet. But once we get those first few sales, then that will say it's working, it's not working, or we need to pivot.
Okay. And what are some ways that you think you're going to need to grow as a leader over the next year or so?
Plenty of ways. In going to leadership, there's always something new, right? There's always something to learn. And communications, skill, there's always room for improvement. Being able to, and coming from the IT world, I will gauge my audience by, where they are technically. So I know whether to give a high level view, like if I'm addressing a C-suite, give them the high level view, or if I am addressing a room full of devs, I'm going to go into the weeds with the tech, really deep dive into the tech, or people in between, and gauge it, right? So I think that's always something that can be improved upon, especially with conversations. Taking the tech guru or tech leadership hat off and putting CEO founder hat on, you apply that towards your audience. Am I addressing investors? Am I addressing customers? Am I addressing potential part-time for equity participants, candidates. So depending who I'm talking to, I need to find out what resonates with them, how to package that together, and either I have 15 minutes or I got a 3-minute pitch, right? Or a 90-second elevator pitch, however it is, and be able to fluctuate in between. So I think as far as leadership skill goes, that's the one you constantly have to work on.
And if there's somebody out there listening who is thinking, oh, this sounds really interesting, how can they support you? What kind of intros are you looking for?
As I continue to move to, the OPC model with the target of, billion-dollar unicorn, something to rest my hat on, the introductions that would be the most important would be large partners, right? So in the event vertical, partners like maybe Luma or I don't know, Ticketmaster. No, maybe not Ticketmaster. They got a bad rep, but any of the larger players in the event space where it's not necessarily competition, but there's overlap. I think those would be really, really key to work with. Influencers, right? I mean, there's a big push for organic content. So influencers in the corporate event space or event space in general would be great introductions. Potential investors further down the line. Up until now, we've been bootstrapped, but once we have the engine running, once we've solved for that pipeline, what we can do once, we can do 1,000 times, or we can do 100,000 times. And so the work's really going into making sure that all that agentic system works end to end seamlessly. So it's almost on autopilot once. And once we get that going, then the conversation with folks wanting to come in at later seed or Series A to help scale. And anybody that's truly interested in participating in a startup that wants to use the latest and greatest technology. Because if you look at technology adoption, there's a standard deviation curve, right? So within 1 or 2 standard deviations, you've got the majority of people that are starting to use ChatGPT instead of Google. But if you are on that cutting edge, if you're 3, 4, 5 standard deviations out, if you knew about OpenClaw before the rest of the world knew OpenClaw and understood MCP, N8N, early on, those are the type of people we're interested in helping us here at VenueKonnex. Those are the type of partnerships that we can definitely use where if you want to use that technology and see how it can be applied to a startup, we've got the place for you. We've got the place for you. So we're open to everybody and anybody, not really focusing too much on one.
All right. Well, Jose, thanks for being here today. Thanks for sharing some founder real talk with us. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on, Josh. I'm glad we connected. It was a wonderful experience. Hopefully, this helps some folks out there, that are following in their own journey, trying to decide whether or not they want to do it themselves as well. And I'll echo what I've been hearing a lot of the leaders in our space have been saying is there's no better time to do a startup than right now. There's no better time. And I can say that with 100% conviction that it's true. So hopefully this helps some folks out there make up their minds.
Thanks.